Welcome back to the Human First CEO series on LinkedIn Live. I'm Nick Maida, CEO of Gainsight, and each week I get the honor of interviewing CEOs and getting to learn how they think about driving success for all their stakeholders and thinking of them as human beings. Today I'm super excited to have Tope Awotona, founder and CEO of Calendly, a product that many of you have already used, talk to us about how he runs his company for success for all stakeholders. Welcome, Tope.
Thanks for having me.
It is so great to see you, and your story is incredible, both personal and business story. Both are really inspiring. So excited to hear about that. But since this is the Human First CEO series, we got to talk about the human being first that you are and like what you're doing right now. So we're all adjusting and obviously going back into this kind of second wave right now in different places. I think you're in Atlanta, if I'm not mistaken, right?
That is correct.
Yeah. And so tell me about what you're looking forward to once the vaccine's out and everyone can go back to normal. What are you missing?
Oh, I'm missing so much. So first and foremost, family and friends. So just this past 2 weeks ago was Thanksgiving, and we had the smallest Thanksgiving gathering that we've ever had. Just like 4 or 5 people, which was really a bummer for me because Thanksgiving is actually one of my favorite holidays. Usually, last year we had 30 people at my house. There was even like a surprise proposal.
Oh my gosh! Wow.
Thanksgiving. So it was really, so like to go from that to just 4 or 5 people this year was a bummer. But I guess safety first, and we're still grateful at the same. So I miss family and friends. I miss live music. I bought tickets to a few concerts. They got canceled. I'm excited for them to get rescheduled next year when the world gets back to normal. I'm also really missing international travel. Right. So this will actually end up being, really missing that. But again, all things considered, very grateful to be healthy and alive.
Absolutely. That's the right attitude. Yeah. So much to look forward to in the future. And for now, we've got these video conference calls. So let's make the best of it. Excited to talk to you about how you think about your business, but let's give everyone some background. First, tell everyone what Calendly is and kind of where you are in your evolution as a company.
Sure. So Calendly is the simplest way to schedule, prepare and follow up on your external meetings, right? So we've all been in those email exchanges where 8 emails go back and forth where we're trying to negotiate times. Calendly takes all of that away. Instead of all the back and forth, you share your Calendly, and the recipient is able to grab a meeting time just in one click. That's one way in which people use Calendly. They end up using it across many different channels, whether it's email, whether it's web, whether it's chat. And so we've been in business for 7 years now, and our users span everything from individual users all the way up to teams and enterprise customers as well. And we even have some developers or applications who are using our product to offer scheduling within their products. And about 10 million people globally use the product on a monthly basis. So yeah, that's
incredible. Yeah, and I'm sure most people watching have used it, gotten Calendly links before. I work in the customer success field, and CSMs are constantly using Calendly because the biggest challenge is getting time with the client, right, and all that email back and forth. So the product itself has tremendous value. Your story, though, is also very inspiring in how you got to this point. You want to give everyone kind of a quick narrative on sort of how you got into the U.S. business and then eventually Calendly?
Yeah, so my story, it's an interesting story, I guess, as I've been telling it now. But you live your life. You don't necessarily know that you're. It's an interesting story, but I was born in Nigeria. Lived there until I was 15. My parents were incredible people. My dad was a microbiologist. My mom was a pharmacist, and really taught us the importance of education. So moved here at the age of 15, which at that time I'd actually finished high school. So moved here at 15, actually spent another 2 years going to high school and getting assimilated to the American educational system. Went to the University of Georgia, studied computer science initially, ended up switching to a business major. And then that combination of business and tech is really kind of what eventually led me here to Calendly. So worked for a number of successful tech companies, from IBM, the large ones, all the way to some startups that look a lot like what Calendly looks like today, and just been really fortunate to work for great companies and had great examples along the way. And eventually, over time, I learned that people who start great businesses, they're very, very normal people. They just they see a problem they feel like that they're passionate about, and they bang their head against it and go for it. And they persevere. They learn fast. and eventually they're successful. And that's what I try to do. For me, it did take 4 failures. So I started 4 different businesses, and they all failed way before I finally got to Calendly. And Calendly really came from the personal problem that I had. I was looking to schedule a meeting in my role. It took way too many emails, and I became motivated to see what was on the market to solve it. Nothing elegant, nothing on the market I thought was elegantly solved the problem. And it started a 6-month journey in which I became educated on the space. And at the end of the 6 months, I decided to raid my bank account, raid my 401k, and go after it. And 7 years later, I'm here with you.
That's amazing. And the world is luckier, and your team and your customers are luckier because you did that. That also makes us all feel better that you had a few times that didn't work. Because Calendly, if you haven't followed the company, is incredible success in terms of not just the growth, but also how efficient it is. So thanks for being so humble about sharing this story. And also, growing up outside of the US and Nigeria, I think it's interesting as we talk about this human first concept to just see the perspectives you had, having a little bit more of a global background than some other folks that have been on the show. So let's talk about, kind of the different stakeholders in the way you think about your business. So I like to start with the community. So people outside of our company, the people in your the cities that you work in, people that influence your teams, and kind of in general, what's been the approach for Calendly employees towards the community? What kinds of things have you done, and how's that changed in 2020?
Yeah, so we've actually been really lucky to have a team that really places a lot of, feels a strong responsibility to their community. And in the past, it's been things like we do company events, and then we go, like a few years ago, for example, we went to this event in which we packed books, which ended up getting sent to different parts of Africa. So that was one event we did, and we did a number of different events. But this year just took a whole, it took on greater urgency, and it happened at a greater scale. Some of the things that we've done this year, and really it's happened at all levels of the company, from when we closed our office down, so before we closed the office down, we catered meals on twice a week. Our employees actually came together and said, why don't we donate our meals, since our office is closed? Why don't we donate those meals to those that are less fortunate in the in the community? And it achieved 2 purposes. It meant that we could still continue to keep our caterers, have an income stream. Mm-hmm. Also, it also allowed us to help people in the community. So that was just really exciting. It was a win-win, I guess I should say. We were also in the early days of the pandemic when, PPE was just very scarce. We were able to secure some masks and donate to local hospitals. And then, finally, we were also able to donate to some important causes. So we donated a total of $100,000 to Black Girls Who Code and the Obama Foundation. So those are some of the things that we've done, but a lot of it is, like I said, it's happened at all levels of the company, which is what I'm really proud of. Is it's not just the leadership of the company saying let's do these things. It's coming bottoms up. It's also happening top down as well. So that's been really great to see.
That's awesome. And I think Calendly, you guys are a few hundred employees. Is that right? How many people in the company?
Yeah, we started the year with about 100. We are now 200 and change.
That's about a great growth this year. And that's awesome that you're able to do that stuff, even though you're not a giant 20,000 person company. You're doing these things as you're still a young company and growing and finding ways to do it amidst, the fact that you don't have infinite dollars. And that story about the catering is a great example. That's such a simple thing that a lot of people could have just canceled all that. And you guys decided to keep spending the money and donating it. That's super interesting. This year, there's probably been a lot more discussion, I'm guessing in Calendly, definitely in Gainsight, about our role in the community and what we should be responsible for, where we should take action, where we should stand up for things. And, obviously there's debate inside companies, debate in society about that stuff. How do you guys navigate that about when to stand up for things, when to support things, when to sit back? What's that like in your company?
It is absolutely an ongoing debate.
Yeah.
And before this year, we didn't really take many positions on many different things, right? But this year really changed that, and I think what we found was that we do have the ability to change what's happening around us. And while, to be honest with you, before this year, I was really more. I subscribe to the school of thought in which you kind of separated, your political beliefs or your beliefs from, like from the business. And I think this year we found that actually you do have a very strong voice, and that a lot of people listen to as a business, and it's important to use that to its full advantage to make sure that the society around us becomes better as a result. Having said that, I don't know that, there are people who want us to be even more active than we are now. So we've moved away from where we were before, but there are people who want us to be more active. There are some people who think we're now too active. Yep. And so we'll continue to have an important debate about what the right role is. I think it's clear to me that we can't go back to where we were before, right? But we also have to make sure that we do it in a way that that whatever we do, we're doing it in a way, we're contributing to, whatever we do is actionable. There's a measurable difference from what we're doing, and we're doing it in a way in which, in an inclusive way, right? So those are the things that are important to me, but definitely, I don't think we can go back to where we could be silent on most important topics of our day.
It's so authentic what you said, because I think that is the reality. A lot of leaders, last year versus now, we've changed a lot. We've evolved our thinking about, where we can be silent versus not. And at the same time, I feel the exact same way. I also have to be cognizant of what I believe in, what I think our company needs to believe in, and then also including all of our team who have a very diverse set of backgrounds and political beliefs and experience sets, and people all over the world. And I don't know, are most of your employees in one city, or are they pretty distributed as well? What's your?
Yeah, we're more and more distributed now. Yeah. I would say like probably about 75% of the company or so is in Atlanta.
Yeah.
And then I would say the remaining 25% or so, that may be generous, maybe 85 and 15%. But we are now a remote first company. We're hiring in many more states now. And so that distribution, we're becoming more distributed.
And I feel like that just creates even more likelihood of different beliefs, because people live in different places. And so we have people all over the world. And I've had to myself just kind of check myself about, okay, that's what you think. You live in California, and there's people that believe certain things there, and people believe other things. And yeah, it's a hard thing to navigate, but it's important to discuss it.
It is. And I think the other important element, the other interesting thing is, I think depending on the part of the country you are, I think certain people in different parts of the country are more open about their political beliefs than I think other parts of the country are. Like in the Southeast, for example, I think people, kind of keep that their political beliefs closer to the vest than many other parts of the country. And so there's also, how do you reconcile all those, all those different preferences?
It's so good, but at least we're talking about it, which is great. So let's talk about the team. So you had to actually, as far as I can tell, you've got a great culture where you built this company where you didn't, I think you didn't raise a ton of money up front, like a lot of, recent SaaS companies, including yours truly, which means that you had to probably get people convinced in the early days without the benefit of some big VC money. And therefore probably your culture was a big part of it. So what was the culture like in the early days of Calendly, and how did that kind of get you to the point you're at now?
Yeah. So we went through, we started the company in 2013, and around 2016 or 2017, we went through an exercise in which we defined our values. Right. And that was the first time in which we actually really sat down and thought about, what do we actually have in common? What is great about, what are those nascent values? Right. And together we came up with 4 different values. They were start with human, which is in everything, it's incidental that you invited me to this.
I know, that's cool. I like that.
Yeah, that's our first value. Start with human. And the belief is that in everything we do, whether it's a product that we're building, a customer that we're talking to on the phone, a ticket that we get, whatever, there's a human being on the other side of that interaction, right? And it's important that we don't lose sight of that human being. And in every action that we take, every decision we make, there's a human being that's impacted by that. And so how do we make sure that we can really take their input into account? Doesn't mean that we'll always be able to do something that makes every single person happy, but we can't make decisions in a blissfully ignorant way.
Love that.
So start with human, find a way. You talked about the company not having raised tons of outside capital. Part of the reason the company has been able to do that is because of the company's resourcefulness and scrappiness. And so we really wanted to make sure that we included that into our values. So find a way is the second one. Strive for excellence. We definitely don't want perfection to be the enemy of the good, but in everything that we do, we aim to do it really, really well. And then, I said start with human, find a way, and then the final one is focus wisely. So it's really about maniacal prioritization. Again, it goes back to how we've been able to grow the company to this size and scale with minimal outside capital. And I think it's also about maniacal prioritization. So focus wisely is the fourth value for us. And once we define those values, it really actually made it easy for us to evaluate new people that were looking to join the company, and also have conversations around, not only can you hit your numbers, but you also have to do your job. You also have to demonstrate these behaviors and how you do your job. And that was a game changer when we did that. But up until 3-4 years ago, when we went through that exercise, those values were emerging in the company, but we hadn't really actually sat down and said, these are the values that we want to operate on.
That's cool. No, I think that's so common that your values kind of grow up and then you discover that they're there. So I love that. And obviously I'm super biased, but I love start with human. That's incredible. All of them also sound very personal to you and to the company, which I think is really important. They're not just generic, you found it in a business school textbook somewhere or something. So they sound very authentic.
Yes. And you're right.
I think one thing you said, which I think is very topical for people, is, obviously we are all temporarily, fully distributed, and some of us are going to choose to be, go back to the way things were, and some of us are going to choose to be more remote oriented. It sounds like you're opting for the latter. What does that mean in terms of how you're going to carry stuff forward post, pandemic, post quarantine and all that?
Yeah, I think there's a lot we still have to learn once the world opens up, but we have an office in Atlanta. We are keeping that office, right? We're keeping that office. And so the way we see it is that we want to be a remote first company. And so we expect every role to be done remotely, but we also realize that there are moments in which people need to come together physically to whiteboard something, to collaborate on a very important on work that maybe doesn't lend itself to being done virtually. And so for that reason, we want to continue to have offices in those cities where we have where we have critical mass. So Atlanta is one of those for us. We're hiring a ton of people in the Bay Area now. So I see that being another place in which we end up having a site, possibly in New York over time. We'll let our hiring kind of guide us towards that. But we definitely see a world in which work is primarily being done remotely, but we all can also come together in person for collaborative work. And even when we're not coming together in person for collaborative work, we see ourselves doing having retreats at least a few times a year, so that we can all still come together and see each other.
Yeah, it's something it's hard to replace. I totally agree with you. And that's really, really cool. I've seen so many CEOs whose minds have just changed about where people need to be, with this year, right? So that's great. One of the challenges, I think, I don't know if you figured this out yet, but how we deal with some of these hybrid meetings where some people are in the office. And by the way, I got a reminder. I forgot how bad those are. We had a client call where we had to present to the client, and we assumed everyone was going to be on Zoom, and somehow they were in an office. I was like, oh my gosh, like this 2020, but they were in an office, and I forgot how terrible it is when you're remote and somebody's in an office and you're trying to present to them. So if you crack that nut, Tope, please tell me, because I think that's a hard one to figure out.
It is a hard one to figure out. We definitely haven't cracked it because we haven't experienced it yet. But going back to like the comment I made around, there's a lot of little things like that you need to figure out.
Yeah.
But I trust that we'll figure it out. Like I'm really proud of how adaptable and flexible the team is, and it's also clear that this new way of working has a lot of clear advantages. We'll still have to find a way to minimize some of the disadvantages. But I think net it's a strong positive for us.
Yeah, that's good, man. Well, I love how you're adapting. I agree. I feel so proud of all the teams out there and honestly all of humanity for adapting this year. So let's talk about the third kind of chapter, the one I have to talk about, which is customer success. And yeah, obviously you are a super successful SaaS business, so you clearly are doing stuff right. But I think the thing that's really interesting is that you have this product-driven business. And so in some sense, you've got customer success built in to the technology, but then you also have this customer success team that works with your clients. So maybe talk about both layers of that at Calendly and how they fit together.
Yeah, so the way we think about it is we do want, talking about human first, like what is the human first way to really build, if you have a product that lends itself this way, is you really want people to be self-sufficient, right?
Yeah.
The reason you want them to be self-sufficient is because it just allows, like when people come to use Calendly, ultimately what they're really trying to do is they're trying to meet with a customer so they can acquire that customer, retain that customer. They're not, the scheduling is just a task, it's a means to the end of
totally
customer. And so whatever we can do to make them efficient in getting that thing done, and a lot of times that looks like self-service. However, there are times in which either the issue is so complex or the person doesn't really have the time, in which we also want to make a human available. And the way we try to separate those is for all users of the product, we want to make sure that the product is as simple as possible. Just about everything is self-serviceable, and we create really good content to help people. But then also make our customer success teams available for our larger customers, so our mid-market customers, our enterprise customers. We want to make we see the value of having a customer success rep working with them, and we see our customer success people. We see them having two very important roles. One is being a change agent, right? And two is just being an advisor and a consultant. The change agent piece is technology is great, and we know for a fact that Calendly is a much better way to schedule than pen and paper or trading emails back and forth. But it's always difficult. Change is always difficult for people, right? And so some people just need a little bit of a nudge or some assistance, to really navigate the change from I used to do it this way to I'm doing it that way, and so that humans do that much better than software can do, right? So we try to do that with software, but it just can't really do it as well as a human can. So that's where our CSMs come in, and we also see them as important advisors, right? So if you take CS teams, for example, the reason they're using Calendly isn't really to schedule meetings; it's ultimately to drive retention, right? And it's we want our CSMs to be talking to our customers about not just the capabilities of Calendly, but how does that actually connect to your business goals, and how can we know what's going on in your business, changes that you're looking to make to drive the metrics that you want, and those are the two things that we really want our CSMs to drive change, so that there's so people can adopt the product, and then also make sure that they get the most out of the product by being a consultant and advisor.
I love that. And now, what metrics does your product team look at beyond your shipping features and stuff to drive success from their vantage point? Are there KPIs you have them targeting?
Yeah, so we look at NPS, and we look at that in a segmented way, right? So by role, by company size. So we want to really make sure that we're driving value for all the different types of users and customers that we have. And also we look at active usage, right? So and so those are the two things that our teams our CSMs are measured on: NPS and active usage. And when those two things happen, retention is strong, expansion is strong, and so we don't really actually goal them on that. We just goal them on make sure that they're happy and using the product, and the rest kind of takes care of itself.
That's awesome. And I'm guessing in the usage area, you probably have learned a lot about people. They send a few Calendly, they use Calendly a couple times, and then they become hooked or something. Is there some kind of thing you figured out about what they need to do early to drive their stickiness?
Yeah. So the most important thing that we've learned a lot of different things. And to be honest with you, we're still working on how do you scale that, right?
Yeah.
Such a large and disparate, user base and diverse user base, I should say. But some of the things we know is the most successful Calendly users actually don't try to ball the ocean when they start using the product. They pick one meeting that occurs with their regular, occurs regularly, and they say, I'm going to start doing that meeting through Calendly. And after 2-3 weeks, they end up saying, actually, I have this other meeting that I want to start doing with Calendly. And that's really actually what we advise our users to do. Just pick one meeting, one type of meeting, start doing that through Calendly, and very quickly the other use cases will emerge. And then beyond that, we try to get them to connect it to their other tools, right? So whether it's their customer success platform, whether it's their CRM, applicant tracking system, conferencing, then you begin to get even more efficiencies by using the product.
Yeah, no, actually, a lot of our customers have integrated Calendly into Gainsight, and Calendly has driven a lot of value for our clients. So that's really, really cool. I'll close out just with one final question. You talked about how you've evolved your thinking as a CEO. I think all of us have, if we're honest, right? And this year's been a big evolution. And there's still obviously some CEOs out there who probably would look at this and say, okay, whatever, a bunch of buzzwords. I don't really believe it. It's just about the bottom line. All this stuff around community or customer success, it's all kind of a distraction. Just focus on, revenue and profit, and kind of, the CEO playbook hasn't changed. I'm curious, like, what do you say to that person if they bring up that point?
Yeah, I would say, I actually have a very interesting approach to this. I believe that everything we do starts with, it sounds really, really cliche, but I think it all starts with the humans, right? So whether, when I have the opportunity to make a decision about a product that we're building, you can look at all these market, size, all the sizing information, or right. I really like to hear, from our users and our customers, right? Because I believe that they're the ones that are actually going to use it. And the reason they're going to use it is because of something that they're trying to do specifically in their business. And so I find it really, I don't know how you can separate the humans, right, that are consuming the product or that are delivering the product to our users from the growth and performance of the business.
I love it. Calendly starts with human. I think that's what I took away from this. And that's an incredible articulation of everything we're trying to do. So thank you so much for building a great business, and honestly for that value, because that really resonates with me. And thanks for being on the show. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Thanks to everyone. We'll see you again very soon.